Hello everybody, so this video is entitled MSTR stock, a big buy this morning, a major buy just announced, and an addition of cash back to the balance sheet. Question mark, no fear. Is there no fear in the heart of Michael Saylor? I think there is no such thing as fear in his mind when it comes to Bitcoin. LOL, it was all a joke after all, right? The bears would have had you believe that he was gonna sell every Bitcoin on the balance sheet, and it was gonna trigger liquidation, cascading liquidations. No such thing, of course. He bought what I would consider a very big amount in the face of a huge bear week and so much FUD. He bought 1,550 Bitcoin and also added $100 million to the USD reserve in order to bring it to $1 billion. So Saylor is keeping his cool while the market is freaking out. Saylor seems to be playing with the bears, entirely playing with the bears. And I agree with Zaid's take here. In other words, we bought back 48 Bitcoin for every Bitcoin sold last week. 48 Bitcoins were bought. So that's an accumulation, I guess, a 48 to 1 or something like that. That's Saylor saying we're going to acquire much more than we sell, don't you worry. As he said, he inoculated the credit agencies maybe that by showing that he can sell Bitcoin. I personally, I think that was a mistake. I think he shouldn't have done that. But then again, I'm not him. What do I know? I'm not at the top of a company. But I do think it spooked the market way more than it should have. But we'll see. Maybe he will tax loss harvest. Maybe he will not. We will see. But I think the way the bears attacked strategy over such a tiny sell is very telling of how hard they would actually attack strategy if strategy were to sell like $1 billion worth to capture that tax loss, And I think Saylor was reluctantly doing it, especially when you see him theorizing on the different type of Bitcoiners. You may have seen his theorization over the weekend that he posted, the 4 archetypes, the taxonomy he created to describe 4 types of Bitcoiners, the technologists, the fundamentalists, the capitalists. Clearly, Saylor both at the front of shorting fiat, but clearly also at the front of theorizing on Bitcoin, and clearly also understanding social media and playing the social media game very well, tweeting a cryptic 32 question mark yesterday night. That was trending as well. And Matt Cole here, head of Strive, right? Strive being the friend of strategy, the co-opetitor, I would call it, because it's more of a cooperation, a competition. The co-opetitor of strategy, I would argue, buying 32 Bitcoin, again, nagging the market once again. Oh, well, the Saylor sold 32. Well, guess what? It's you're still denying 32 over owners of Bitcoin because now it's Strive who's buying it, and so they're kind of swapping. They're playing. This is play, and play is important for social media because play is how you trend on social media, and that's how people get talking about you. So Saylor has mastered this game as well, I would argue. Moving on to how did you raise the funds, right? How did he raise the fund? 181 million. Remember, he had something like 130 million left from last week as well. So cash is high for strategy. They can raise cash fairly easily. How did you raise the fund? He used the common ATM. What did I say yesterday? I said that I loved the common ATM. I keep loving the common ATM. People keep not liking it. I have no reason. I have no idea why. I think a lot of newcomers in the space seem to believe that we need to move beyond using the common ATM. But the initial 10x on strategy that I think many of us experienced and are still sitting on right now, well, not quite, more like an 8x right now, that initial 10x, that was all thanks to mNAV. So I think the older holders of strategy For those who have been in the stock for a long time, like me, they will recognize the mNAV as a very powerful tool. And the mNAV is 1.19. Now, a lot of people are criticizing the way strategy calculates the mNAV. But I've always been an advocate of using enterprise value. Enterprise value, I've always thought, is a better metric than market cap. Enterprise value is part of a capital structure. And when you take into account that both types of debt that strategy has on the balance sheet is either perpetual or soon to be dilution, right? The convertible, presumably, if the stock keeps going as high as we all think it's going, right? If in 2031 the stock is trading at, I don't know, $1,000 a share, it's all going to convert. The converts are going to convert to shares, and so they will be like pure raw market cap, and the perpetuals never need to be paid back. So the way the crux of the debate as to whether the 1.19 mNAV is correct or not has to do with what do you do with a perpetual stock. Is the perpetual stock something that you consider permanently part of a capital structure, and then you see multiple tickers part of strategy's capital structure, or do you look at the perpetual stock as something that needs to be paid back, which I think is extremely silly and extremely normie to the point of not looking up that perpetual stocks are making a comeback. Yeah, in traditional finance they weren't a thing in the 20th century, but we're not in the 20th century anymore. So perpetual stock do not need to be paid back. They are forever. They are part of a capital structure, just like MSTR stock is. And to me, it makes sense to put them. It makes sense to put them in the EV calculation that goes as the denominator of the mNAV. So to me, that makes a lot of sense. And he's very, very clear. He's very clear as to how he calculates it. And I suppose that some of our websites calculate it differently, and they use the quote-unquote dumb market cap. There's a reason why most analysts use EV and not market cap anymore. Yeah, back in the day when you were using pink sheets and newspaper and all that sort of stuff, market cap is kind of the only thing you could get. Now you can get EV, but for those who use market cap and compare it, of course, to the stack of Bitcoin, yeah, we get closer to a 1, even a 0.99. Except I don't think that's the correct calculation. And also, and this is an important point that I think I'll make in another video, is you can see it as a Bitcoin buyback, because Bitcoin is finite. It's a Bitcoin buyback. So let's assume Saylor buys 1% of all of the Bitcoin outstanding. You can look at it as a yield, a BTC yield for the entire network of what is it of 1%. You can look at it as a yield like that. So I'll theorize more on that. But because you're buying back a finite supply, essentially, whenever you buy back, you are creating a yield for the entire network because it's a finite supply, right? So even buying back at an mNAV of 1, in my view, is actually a very good thing for both strategy and the network. That's the key difference. Anybody buying Bitcoin is good for the network. So in my view, if Saylor even had like unlimited demand on MSTR shares at a 1x mNAV, perhaps he should use it, because you would be creating a Bitcoin yield at the network level, not necessarily at the stock level. And everybody who buys Bitcoin creates a Bitcoin yield for everyone, a Bitcoin dividend for everyone, quote unquote, not an actual payment, but a Bitcoin benefit, let's call it, to everyone whenever somebody joins the network. So this is a very finite asset. I don't have a problem with this calculation, and I don't have a problem with him doing even an mNAV at like a 1.1. And I know it's a hot take. I know it's a hot take, but I think it's a hot take in the people who are newer in this space. To me, this makes a lot of sense. By the way, the mNAV would be rebounding as soon as the markets open. That mNAV is going to rebound. It's using the close of Friday on this, so that mNAV is now outdated. We need the stock market to open up. You'll see it will go back up, maybe to like 1.23, 1.24, something like that. So, anyways, and the ATM most likely higher than that. A few final points. And another point, right? So EBOT at 65,000. This is once again what I've been saying throughout this crash is I don't think the price broadcast by Binance and other exchanges and other aggregators of exchange prices. I don't think that's the real price. I think the price to actually take possession of the coins is actually at all times probably, what is it, 10%, maybe 15% more expensive at all times, right? I mean, we hit a low of 59,500. Was it 59,200? And he bought at 65,300. So that delta, I think, is the premium to take possession of the coin. This is a little bit like gold. If you want to buy gold, if you go to like a local gold store, you want to buy gold, you're going to pay 20% above spot, maybe 15%, maybe more, depending on the shape of the gold. So taking actual possession, I think, is more expensive than actually buying the price broadcast by the exchange, because the price broadcast by the exchange may work for the little person, like most of us, right? We like you say, you wake up, you want to buy one Bitcoin one day. Yeah, that might work for one Bitcoin, but for 1,500 Bitcoin, that probably doesn't work. Which is kind of my take on this. So I don't think Bitcoin went that low. I think Bitcoin was advertised as this low, but I don't think it went that low. And if Saylor had actually done one of his bigger buys, like what if he had wanted to buy 10,000 Bitcoin, there's even less of a way that he would have been able to buy 10,000 Bitcoin at 60K. Even less of a way of him doing that. And then the pre-market observations, of course, we're bouncing back. We're up 6%. Stretch is up 1%. Bitcoin behaved very well over the weekend despite awful macro yesterday evening, at least in the US, right? Might have been during your night if you're in Europe. Awful macro. Awful macro, and yet this morning we have a resolution. The oil prices are easing per CNBC. Nasdaq is up 1.5%, and the Middle East people seem to be heading towards a ceasefire and stop, sending. I don't know what they're doing. Again, this is a topic that unfortunately doesn't interest me, but it just impacts the price of Bitcoin a lot, and I think it does because, of course, Binance is headquartered in Abu Dhabi, and I think that those headlines probably impact Binance much more than perhaps in us in the US. I think it's time to end it. I really hope they end it. The market needs this to end. If this whole Middle East situation is resolved, I think the markets will pump, and they need it to end. And Trump's birthday is coming up. The World Cup's coming up. Somebody's looking for a good news, and I think we could have a good week. At least I really hope for the sake of everybody. I hope we have a good news on this. I really do. So, anyways, last thing I wanted to mention. You may have seen last night Black Monday trending, or Black Monday, or this or that. And the main reason for that was, of course, the Kospi. The Kospi is the Korean stock exchange dropping 8%. What people who are engagement farming on Black Monday, trying to scare everybody on a Sunday night for here in the US, they are not showing, of course, that the Kospi was entirely closed, of course, when we had the big Nasdaq dump on Friday. So it follows the price action of the US of the last trading day, because the Kospi is closed when the US is open. And so to look at, say, oh, look, the Korean stock market is crashing and it's going to be Black Monday in the US is, I think, misguided. It's crashing because it's following the price action from Friday, which it did not record, for it was night over there and the market was closed. So it's just playing catch-up. Kospi is always playing catch-up. But of course, if you're trying to engagement farm, you don't want to say that, obviously. So anyways, let's see. I really hope for a good week. For all of our sake, I hope for a good week. But congrats on Saylor. I think this is a very good move. This was not investment advice. This is not financial advice. This is only entertainment. I hope you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe. Follow me on Patreon. Follow me on X. Thank you for watching. And have a wonderful, wonderful day.